Rock legend Roger Daltrey from The Who, as if you didn't know. Stay with us. Please welcome Roger Daltrey to this program. The legendary lead singer of one of rock's biggest acts, The Who, is part of an acclaimed new documentary about the band called Amazing Journey. The film premiered on VH1 and is now available in stores on DVD. Here now a scene from Amazing Journey.
It was only really, though, when we got on stage with Tommy as a complete piece of music that I really found my feet and found the Who voice. Touch me,
heal me. Roger suddenly became this different kind of singer. He never had that quality that he now has, which is of going up to the audience and engaging them and opening his body to them, you know, and that kind of nakedness, instead of being a really tight little kind of I'm a vicious mod, don't get in my way kind of thing.
Roger Daltrey, a pleasure to meet you.
How are you?
Glad to have you here. So they say reading is fundamental, and I'm cracking up because all the years of listening to the Who music and trying to figure out where that soul comes from in your voice, I finally learned that you start out in the choir.
Yeah, yeah.
So now it all makes sense. Now, you and I were laughing.
Isn't that where all soul goes from? From the choir. You know?
Well, you're laughing, but it's true. In the States, of course, it is a rite of passage almost for every major black artist that we've ever loved, enjoyed. They came out of the black church somewhere,
right.
and here's a white guy coming out of the church.
Yeah.
That's where the soul comes from.
Yeah.
What kind of choir were you singing in the church you grew up in?
It was the kind of Protestant church in London, Church of England, singing all the hymns. It wasn't quite gospel, but I just naturally could do it. I've got perfect pitch. Yeah. And they would throw stuff at me, and within 2 minutes, I can't read music, but I immediately hear it where the notes are and can sit them. Yeah.
Yeah. Beyond the church, what kind of music were you listening to then that was...
Oh, this was in the choir, I was 6 years old. Yeah. But then it was all post-war, big band stuff, Dean Martin, and that was coming down the radio. We didn't have luxuries like records in those days. I mean, this was post-war England. Yeah. We barely gotten the roofs back on our houses and the windows back in from the bombing. So it was BBC radio was everything to us, and whatever they would be playing, that's the music that was around the house. But then one day on the radio there was this kind of slot once every week that was for the forces all over the world. It was British Forces Network, and it was where they could send their loved ones a piece of music and a message, you know. And it was every Sunday lunchtime from midday till 1 o'clock. And one day, I was about 11 years old. I think it was 1957, and down the pipe came this sound of this guy singing like I've never ever heard any. I've never ever heard a noise like it, and it was Elvis singing Heartbreak Hotel. Oh, yeah. And my life just changed overnight. Whoa!
See, white guy singing in the choir.
Yeah. Whoa! What is that noise? And that's what really got me really interested in, you know, actually maybe able to making a living out of singing. Yeah.
So you and the guys, how did you connect?
Well, we were at school together, although we didn't really connect much there because they were in a year younger than me. But we used to come from the same area in London, and indeed John used to live literally one street away. There was one dividing street, and he was in the next street after that. He was there with his mum. His mother was divorced, so John had a stepdad, which wasn't very good for John. And John had found music. He was a trumpet player in a silver band. You know, and I met him walking down the street, and he had a homemade bass guitar around his neck, and I had been making my own guitars because we couldn't afford to buy these things.
You made your own guitar?
We used to make our own. Yeah, wow. That's the only way. So I asked him to join my band, and he said, "Oh, I'm in a band." So I said, you know, you're getting paid? He said, no. I said, we are. I was lying, of course. But he came down. He came down, and he attracted, of course, by that. He came down and he played with us, and he stayed. And he gave up his band, which was, they were playing all kinds of things. Most of it trad jazz, you know, from New Orleans jazz. He was playing trumpet. And in that band, there was a guy called Pete Townsend. Again, used to go to my school, who was playing the banjo. And John joined my band, and about sort of 6 months later, our guitarist with the amp, left and left us kind of up the river without a paddle. So we had to.
Yeah, it's bad to lose your guitarist, but you lose your guitarist.
Yeah,
and your amp, you got a problem.
we lost the group amp. And he said, I know someone who's got not only have they got a guitar, but they've got an amp.
Yeah.
And it was Pete, and Pete came in, and that's where the nucleus of the band came. Yeah. But it's funny though, because even though they were a year younger than me at school, they stuck out in a crowd. You know, it was just like two turkeys amongst the ducks. Yeah. You know, it was incredible. I knew who they were. Yeah. Just by the way they were. They're very individual looking, and the mannerisms were very different than anyone else in the crowd.
Tell me how this sound then that you all crafted was created. And I'm asking that because you're playing one instrument and listening and being turned on by one kind of music. John is doing the New Orleans thing. Pete's playing the banjo.
Yeah, but I mean, we all liked the rock music. Right. By that time, this was later. Right. And by that time, we'd gone through skiffle, which was early American folk songs, played by a guy called Lonnie Donegan. And Lonnie Donegan was the guy who first made me really realise that instead of just wishing maybe I could do this, made me realise that you can do this. And he was singing an earlier Midnight Special, that kind of stuff. And so we all had skiffle groups. Then we went on to early American pop stuff that we were covering in England. And every band played that, and they were grounded in that as well. So that's what we kind of started playing. And then we discovered Tamla Motown and James Brown, and all the Chicago bluesmen, you know, Howlin' Wolf and Jimmy Reed, John Lee Hooker, all those people. So it was kind of weird, and we totally got that music. You know, if you understand anything about the class system in England, well, the bottom of the pile is the working class, which was us. So we totally understood where black American music from those people came from. We knew what the intention and what was in.
You understood the blues.
Oh, who are these guys? And indeed, those people, we made huge stars in England. I mean, Sonny Boy Williamson, Jimmy Reed, John Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters would come over there in the 60s. They were treated like gods by these young kids, you know, sort of 15, 16 years old, worshipping them. So we were grounded in that, but our sound hadn't quite gelled. We were kind of a copyist band. And then one day our drummer left, and we had a session drummer in, and the word was out on the street that we were looking for a drummer. And we had quite a good following on the circuit. And this apparition appeared at the front of the stage in a bright ginger suit and bright ginger hair and great big bright black eyes. And it was Keith Moon, jet black eyebrows. And he said, I'm going to be your drummer. Literally, I mean, not can I be, I'm going to be your drummer. Oh, yes. He said, can I have a go? So, yeah. And the guy kindly let him play his drum kit. We played Bo Diddley's Roadrunner. And it started off as we normally would, just a complete copy of Bo Diddley playing Roadrunner. By the time we finished the song, it was something completely and utterly different. It had just like, I don't know, watching a flower bloom. It went boof. And the sound that happened with the mix of his drumming to a three-piece band, because I was a singer, we just had a bass player and a guitar. It was kind of magical. It was almost like a fairy had been up there and gone, bing!
So that night, you all start to discover what your own sound is.
Yeah.
Let me fast forward then, Roger, from that night, figuring that you guys could put your own stamp on your own music, to what you think, in retrospect, The Who has been and given to rock. I mean, every critic has taken his own stab at what makes you guys uniquely different than every other rock band that's come through. What's your sense looking back on it?
Well, I think more than anything, I think what The Who did, and mainly because of we are so different. You can't. You look at rock and roll, and you can hear the influences of the blues in the Stones and in the Beatles, and in some way Led Zeppelin. But The Who is much more it's kind of weird. You think, well, where did it come from? But all those little essences are in there, but it's not directly noticeable. And I think the one thing that we probably do more than any of the others, I think it brings people to consciousness. It's very demanding music. The words are very succinct, and they're very particular, and they all need to be heard, which is very unusual for rock and roll.
You make that possible, though. Your talent.
Well, it's part of what the songs need. It's part of being inside the song and making you kind of understand what this is really about. Right. And what it's really about is you and me. It's about us. It's not about, usually rock and roll is usually about the guy on the stage and the person in the audience wanting to do something. That's what rock and roll really was in the early days. But no, The Who, I think, really does bring, it's the worst kind of music you can play at a party. If you put a Who song on at a party, the atmosphere will go because all of a sudden everybody's conscious. Oh, yeah. It's incredibly demanding, and I think that is our mark.
That's a beautiful answer, and I think it's right on point. Of course, it should be, since it came from you.
Well, it's how I feel about it, and we are only a reflection of our audience. And Townsend was given a great gift of seeing what getting that reflection inside and throwing it back so it will come back to him. And it's like a, I don't know, I suppose it's like a nuclear furnace. Keep bouncing. That's where the end. People have always said, "Oh, The Who's so great on stage, there's all this energy." That energy is coming from the crowd. They're giving it to us. We just transmit it.
Well, we've learned at least three things from this conversation, this all too brief conversation. Number one, do not play The Who at a party. Number two, the music is about...
Well, you do it for an experiment.
Yeah.
You see if I'm not right.
Two, the music is all about you. And number three, they've got a new DVD out that you can run out and get, because I just didn't even scratch the surface in this conversation tonight about this amazing journey that The Who has been and continues to be on, and that's the name of the DVD, Amazing Journey, the story of The Who, a 2-film DVD box set. Roger Daltrey, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on the program.
You'd be lucky.
You too, sir. That's our show for tonight. Catch me on the weekends on PRI, Public Radio International. Access our radio podcast through our website at pbs.org. I'll see you back here next time on PBS. Until then, good night from Los Angeles. Thanks for watching. And as always, keep the faith.
For more information on today's show, visit Tavis Smiley at pbs.org.